So it's time for us to go and take a look at the PSP 1000 and compare it against the PSP 2000 and see how both of these consoles hold up in 2025. Number one, the biggest thing I can probably tell you is that between both, there was a couple of different years that kind of came by between these two consoles. One of the biggest assets for something like the PSP 2000 was the fact that it was a newer console and it was basically giving you a faster console and it was slimmer and lighter. In some places, it's actually called the PSP Slim or PSP, Light. And that was actually something that was really cool going on for that particular console. But the PSP 1000 is the original. It is sometimes called the Fat PSP because it was a pretty big, thick console at the time. Now, the PSP 1000 came out in 2004 in Japan, but 2005 everywhere else. And it was a pretty big, hefty console. The screen itself is 4.3 inches, which is the same exact screen size as the PSP 2000, but it is actually a slightly dimmer display. So if you were to go and get something like the PSP 1000, you'd actually be getting a display that is technically dimmer than something like the PSP 2000. So that is kind of one of those things to keep in mind, but it is a very well-built console, and that's something I've always liked about the PSP 1000. The PSP 2000, which came out a few years later, is essentially the same size display, same size, but the resolution, the brightness is just better. The response time is better and the screen brightness is better as well. So that was one of the cool things going on for that particular console. Now, the batteries were a little bit different as well. The battery inside of the PSP 1000 was actually like an 1800 milliamp hour battery. The PSP 2000 was giving you a 1200 milliamp hour battery. So these batteries were interchangeable, so you could go through and pop them out if you want to, but you were basically getting a console because it was slimmer. It didn't have the biggest size battery inside of it, which could be a little bit of a disappointment depending on who you are. But the RAM inside, the power inside, you're getting twice the amount of RAM inside of the PSP 2000, and you were actually getting TV output as well. Like you can go through and output this thing to a TV via the AV, output port, and that was a pretty crazy thing going on there. The PSP 1000 didn't really have that type of capability. Another advantage, the UMD drive inside of the PSP 2000 was actually quieter and it was faster to read it versus the PSP 1000. So that right there was another really interesting takeaway for this type of device too. And if you're going to go through and pick up a device, that right there was another really cool thing to kind of think about there. Now, when it comes down to everything else, again, they're both relatively the same. They play the same exact games. You can go through and, kind of use them whichever way you want to. The main advantage I would say for the PSP 1000 is that it's the original hardware. But the biggest thing here is that console, if you're trying to modify a console or install custom firmware on it, the PSP 1000 does have the highest likelihood of giving you that type of capability. So you do have the highest likelihood here of basically going through, installing homebrew on it. So you could go through and do it there. Whereas on the PSP 2000, it's a little bit of a different story. You can still possibly do it, but it doesn't necessarily it's not the most customizable console unless you have a specific PSP 2000 for the most part. So when it comes down to both, I'm definitely going to tell you, I like both. They both play the same games, but the PSP 2000 was a pretty big upgrade in some ways between both. But if you do have the option to, if you do want to go and pick up another one, if you're trying to especially install homebrew on it, the PSP 1000 might be the better option for you. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.